I used this 80-year-old camera to take a series of portrait photographs, and this is the result. Work hard, rest often. What is going on, everyone? It is Finn Badgley, and this is the Kodak Vigilant Junior 6-20 medium format film camera. Now, most places don't even make film for this anymore. It's that old. Usually you need to get the more modern form 120 film and adapt it to the 620 spool because the size is slightly different, so they won't fit properly. I was actually able to find a couple rolls of 620 film still being produced on B&H, so I ordered some rolls of that, got some Portra 400 and a couple different black and white stocks that we played around with, and the results I was weirdly surprised with. Now, I had taken a couple shots with this before, more landscape, different style photographs, but I really wanted to see how it worked in a portrait setting. Now, something about this camera is the minimum aperture is 12.5. So you typically need a lot of light, and it has 3 different shutter modes. So you can see here, this is the shutter release. So I'll hold that in front of my face so it focuses. The shutter release is right here, and you just do that. Now, I don't have any film loaded in this, so it didn't just take a photo, but you have your aperture down here, and it goes between 12.5 and about f32. And you can see, if I hold that up, you might be able to even see the little aperture there changing. It has 3 different shutter settings. There is the standard one, which is what I just showed, which is roughly 1/100th of a second. There's the bulb shutter, which is just however long you hold it open for. And then there's a separate option where you flick it once to open the shutter and flick it again to close it. So similar to bulb, but a little different. Now, it has 2 different ways of framing this. So you have the viewfinder up here, which there's no glass or optics in there, but it just gives you a rough field of view. Or then there's a top-down waist level finder right here that you can use as well. Now, it's a little tricky because it is backwards like a lot of medium format cameras are, but it can get the job done. And actually both ways of framing are pretty decent in my opinion. And then to spool it, you just have this guy down here. Now, the thing is, if you've noticed about how I've been speaking about the shutter and the aperture system on this, you need a lot of light. You need a lot of light. This is not what you're going to use in low light. Although I did. We'll get there. Something about this camera is it has a super tiny lens, and the quality out of it is, how do I put it? It's different. It's different. Now, what do I mean by the quality is different? You can see from these photos, everything's a little faded, everything's a little bit soft, but it has such a look to it. This camera definitely has its own definitive look, and honestly, I really like how these turned out. It's just a different feel than I'm used to, even shooting on a lot of film. It's so unpolished, so just different. It's actually like a weirdly, really artsy thing, which has really made me come to love and appreciate this camera. One thing too is it folds down like so. It's got a little kickstand, and then that folds in there. And then you got that. And then on the back here, you can see where what film number you're on. Got a little handle here, although I can only fit 3 fingers in there, because if I try to fit 4, it don't work too well. But when it folds down, you can see roughly, this is my iPhone, and this is the iPhone 13 Pro for reference. This is the size of the camera. It's a little bit thicker, but honestly, it's roughly the same size. And if you have decently sized pockets, you can just throw this in your back pocket. I've done it before. It does work, although it is kind of heavy. Like, it's, the iPhone 13 Pro has some weight to it. This is probably weight-wise like 3, maybe 4 of those. So definitely keep that in mind, but it is something that is quite pocketable and portable, maybe the most portable medium format camera out there. But also the quality, it's not going to be anything that's super tack sharp or super polished like we're used to. If you're looking for that really really perfect clinical look, this is absolutely not the camera for you. But it's such a different, interesting look, and I absolutely love it. This was my grandfather's camera for reference. Yes, it is roughly 80 years old. It came out in the 1940s. It was produced actually in my hometown of Toronto, Canada, which is also just super cool, by Kodak. And it's one of those things that I just love shooting with. It's such a weird experience, and I'm so glad that it still works and still shoots properly. Now, one thing that I did discover, and you may have seen my earlier video if you watched on my DIY film scanner, my little trying to quickly scan a bunch of photos that came out of this just so I had them. I'll insert the clip here where I realized what happened. But basically, when I was winding this camera, you open it just by flicking down this little switch here, and then the back opens and you can see the accordion style thing there. Basically, in here, when I opened it up, there was some like bits of film that were torn off in there, and I thought, okay, that was bizarre and strange, but okay. And then I got the negatives back, or rather I got refunded because they couldn't scan or print the negatives. It's like, that's weird. Okay. And then I realized why, and that's because there were giant tears in the negatives. This is a roll of black and white film that I shot on it, and this is what was hit the worst. You can see if I hold that up, it's those chunks missing. It's not supposed to be like that. That's not how things out of this camera should be, but it's what happened. And it's just made me aware that I need to be careful whenever I'm loading and unloading and spooling and everything this camera, because it can and will tear the absolute crap out of your film. I haven't really seen anything online talking about this when I looked it up at first, but it does seem that it's a thing that happens. So if you're looking at shooting with this camera, be aware it might try to eat your film. It's a little hungry. It's older. It has an appetite, and its appetite is for film, and it will eat it and leave you with pieces of negative that are not there anymore. But even so, the photos out of it still turned out super cool, and I'm really happy with how they came out, even after I put together my shoddy, janky scanning rig. Link to that video up here, by the way. I also made a little NFT collection out of this, and there's little mini drops that are going on. Basically, what this turned into was a conversation of, yes, these negatives were damaged, and yes, they were torn up and beaten up and all that kind of stuff, but there's still worth in that. There's actually, it creates an effect that I actually really like because of that, and these are some of my favorite photos that I've taken with this camera, which just leads to the conversation of, yeah, people can be damaged and bruised and beaten and everything, but that doesn't mean you're still not worthy of love, and that you still don't have value. So that's really what this whole thing is about, and it's really been an interesting lesson that this camera has taught me. It's something that I think I learn more every time I use it, and gets me excited to shoot no matter what it is. It's just, everything out of it just looks weird and artsy and cool, and I like it, and I'm excited to take more photos with that and share them with you. So I hope you enjoyed this little bit of portraiture with this 80-year-old camera. Let me know your thoughts down below. Subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the bell to be notified when I post new videos so you never miss an upload. Work hard, rest often, and as always, I will see you on the next one.